So the Nikon Z6iii is here, and I may or may not consider picking one up. But there's one thing that I'm afraid of with these Nikon cameras, and that may possibly hold me back. But we'll get to that in a moment. The gas is real, my friends. The gas is real. In today's video, I just want to go over the specs and share my thoughts since I am a lover of cameras and technology first. I'll say this again, brand loyalty doesn't mean anything to me. If they put out a good product, I'll keep my ears to the street and listen. And if they push the culture forward, I'm here for it. So basically, the Nikon Z6iii is a full-frame Xh2s. The specs are so freaking similar minus the sensor size. The Xh2s is a APS-C stacked sensor, whereas the Nikon Z6 is a full-frame partially stacked sensor, whatever that means. They both shoot at 24 megapixels and both can shoot at 6K. Albeit the Xh2s can shoot 6.2K open gate up to 30p, and the Nikon Z6 can shoot up to 6K 60p, which is unheard of until now. However, the Z6 doesn't shoot open gate. If they could have made it open gate somehow, it would have been like the perfect camera or the best camera out there, like for real. The Nikon also has a few more things up its sleeves, like, you know, shooting 120 frames per second JPEG, so you can capture all that fast paced action. 20 frames per second RAW with like the one CF Express Type B card and an SD card slot, just like the Xh2s. There's one thing that's different from the rest, and that is the EVF. The EVF on paper looks pretty sweet. 4,000 nits of brightness. 4,000 nits of brightness is insane. I would love this, especially here in the Algarve. It's been so freaking bright and sunny here. It's really hard to review my images on my Sony A7C II and my Fujifilm X-T5 in this bright sunny conditions. However, I feel like the Nikon Z6 would help combat that with the new EVF. And just to put into perspective, my iPhone 13 only has 800 nits of brightness. 4,000 nits of brightness is impressive alongside with the 5.6 million dot EVF. So it'll be sharp, it'll be clear and bright for your viewing pleasure. And this is one thing that I am excited about, because all I just want to do is just put my eye and cup it into the EVF. Is that weird for me to say? I don't know. I think EVFs are important. Just sue me. It's going to use the same processor that is found on the Nikon Z8, ZF, and Z9. So this means that it should be really good at tracking and autofocusing subjects. However, I do have concerns. I don't know if any Nikon users can shed light on this and be truthful about their autofocusing, but no, I want to know if these new Nikon cameras with the latest processor inside share the same quirks that Fujifilm does. The autofocusing on Fujifilm tends to back focus a lot, and sometimes they would, like, you know, get the ear, sometimes they'll get the hair, or sometimes they would just hit the eyelash more than the iris. I just want to know, how is it on the Nikon system with these newer latest gen cameras? Does it hit the eyelash or the iris? I was reviewing some sample images from a Nikon creator. Shout out to Photo Me Ike, because I downloaded some of his RAWs. It was against the Sony a7R5 versus the Nikon Z8. And when I looked at the RAW files between the two, it seems to me like the Sony camera hits the iris most of the time, whereas the Z8 with the same processor that is in the Z6iii was hitting the chest area, or like the nose, or like this part, or like, again, the back of the ear and stuff like that. So it wasn't fully sharp on the iris like the Sony, and this is what concerns me about the Nikon system, and maybe holding me back from actually wanting to try out a Nikon system. I don't want to have to deal with any more autofocusing issues because of the Fujifilm X-T5 and the Xh2s debacle that's been going on around on the internet. I just don't want shitty autofocusing anymore. But for sure, I know that as of right now, I think the Nikon system has a much more reliable autofocusing system than the Fuji. Fujifilm's autofocusing sucks right now, and I don't know what the engineer is smoking, but it's just straight up ass. Some people say it's great, it's like a Sony, and then it hits the iris, and some people are saying it hits the eyelashes. I need you guys to, you know, come together and help me out, help a brother out. But I know that it's freaking great for bird photography. I've seen those channels where these creators use a Z8 to shoot birds in flight, and the images they got look so freaking crisp and sharp, and they're moving really fast. So humans should be a bit easier because they're not as sporadic as birds in their movements. As a content creator, what I'm looking for is reliable autofocusing, something that's not going to be twitchy in their autofocusing like my X-T5. I just want to know, how sticky and reliable is the autofocusing from Nikon, really. It looks really good from what I've seen so far, but I've never used a Nikon system, so I wouldn't know. If there are anybody that uses like, you know, Nikon and Sony, let me know. Let me know what's your take on it, because I would really, really love to know. So if Nikon's autofocusing is better than the X-T5 in this situation, I'm all ears, baby. I'm all ears. I'm down. Just let me know. The Nikon Z6 has amazing video specs as well, like NRAW internal. Like, that's crazy. It was from the sample footage that I've seen on YouTube so far. It looks really great, and I'm really impressed. Like, the videos look clean and crispy, and the colors I've seen looks just straight up beautiful. So overall, what do I think of the Nikon Z6? On paper, it looks great. I heard fantastic things about the Nikon colors and how great their files are to work with. Since the launch of like the Nikon Z9, Z8, and the Nikon ZF, and now the Z6iii, I've been impressed with what Nikon has been doing so far. They have been on my radar since the Nikon Z8. Maybe all those memes about Nikon cameras really did help Nikon put out a few bangers over the years. Nikon really made some big moves behind the scene, and it led them here to what I think is like an incredible camera on paper. And the price, it's like coming in at $2,500, which is how much the Fujifilm Xh2s is going for. Why get a Fujifilm Xh2s with like shitty autofocusing when you can get a full frame Z6iii with similar specs and better autofocusing? You know what I mean? And maybe the Z6iii is like even a better performer than the Xh2s. I just think it's at an incredible value, and the cameras that are coming out from Canon, Sony, and Fuji and Panasonic in the future should be competitive to the Z6iii, or I just see more people switching over to Nikon in the future. Anyways, that's all I got. What are your thoughts on the Z6iii? Let me know down in the comment section below, and consider subscribing to my channel for more photography talk videos like this. And thanks so much.